The galaxy was vast, filled with countless species, each with their own stories of heroism and tragedy. But none could have predicted the tale that would unfold when a human warrior crossed paths with a dying alien princess. It was a story that would echo through the stars, forever changing the fate of empires. The battle had been brutal. The Eclipse, a human warship, had been ambushed by the Xal'tharians, a ruthless alien race known for their relentless conquests. Captain Marcus Hale, a seasoned warrior with a reputation for defying impossible odds, had led his crew through the chaos. But even he couldn't prevent the ship from crashing on a desolate moon in the Xal'tharian-controlled sector. As the smoke cleared, Marcus emerged from the wreckage, his armor scorched and his body battered. He was alone. The rest of his crew had either perished in the crash or been captured by the Xal'tharians. Determined to survive, Marcus scavenged what supplies he could and set out across the barren landscape. It wasn't long before he stumbled upon a scene that stopped him in his tracks. A sleek, alien shuttle lay half buried in the sand, its hull cracked and sparking. Nearby, a figure lay motionless. Marcus approached cautiously, his hand resting on the hilt of his plasma blade. The figure was unlike anything he had ever seen. She was tall and slender, with iridescent skin that shimmered like starlight. Her long, silver hair was matted with blood, and her delicate features were twisted in pain. She wore a regal gown, now torn and stained, and a strange, glowing pendant hung from her neck. Marcus recognized her instantly. She was a Xal'thari, a species revered for their advanced technology and peaceful ways. But what was a Xal'thari princess doing in Xal'tharian territory? As Marcus knelt beside her, her eyes fluttered open. They were a deep, mesmerizing violet, filled with both fear and determination. She reached out a trembling hand, her voice barely a whisper. "Please help me." Marcus hesitated. The Xal'thari were allies of humanity, but he had no way of knowing if she could be trusted. Still, he couldn't leave her to die. He scooped her into his arms and carried her to a nearby cave, where he tended to her wounds as best he could. But her injuries were severe. The Xal'tharians had used a bioweapon, one designed to target the Xal'thari's unique physiology. Her body was failing, and without immediate medical attention, she would not survive. "There's a cure," she gasped, clutching his arm. "But it requires a donor. Someone with compatible blood." Marcus frowned. "I'm human. Our blood isn't compatible with yours." The princess shook her head weakly. "Your species is unique. Your blood has regenerative properties. It might work." Marcus didn't hesitate. He had no idea if it would work, but he couldn't stand by and watch her die. Using a makeshift transfusion kit from his survival gear, he connected their veins and watched as his blood flowed into her body. First, nothing happened. Then, slowly, her breathing steadied, and the color returned to her skin. Her wounds began to close, and the pain in her eyes faded. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and awe. "You saved me," she whispered. "But you don't understand what you've done." Before Marcus could respond, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The cave's entrance was suddenly flooded with light as a massive Xal'tharian warship descended from the sky. Dozens of armored soldiers poured out, their weapons trained on the pair. Marcus drew his blade, ready to fight to the last. But the princess placed a hand on his arm, her voice calm and steady. "Wait." The Xal'tharian soldiers parted as a figure emerged from their ranks. It was a Xal'thari male, his expression one of relief and reverence. He knelt before the princess, his head bowed. "Princess Aelara," he said, "we thought you were lost." Aelara rose to her feet, her strength fully restored. She turned to Marcus, her eyes filled with determination. "This human saved my life," she declared. "He is to be treated as an honored guest." The Xal'thari male nodded, though his eyes narrowed as he studied Marcus. "As you wish, Your Highness." Marcus was brought aboard the Xal'thari flagship, a marvel of technology that put even the most advanced human ships to shame. As he was escorted to a luxurious suite, he couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental had just happened. Later that evening, Aelara visited him. She had changed into a flowing gown that shimmered like the night sky, and her presence commanded the room. She thanked him again for saving her life, but there was something more in her eyes, a sense of urgency. "Marcus," she said, "you must understand the gravity of what you've done. My people are on the brink of war with the Xal'tharians. They captured me in an attempt to force my father, the Emperor, to surrender. By saving me, you've not only thwarted their plans but also given us a chance to fight back." Marcus nodded slowly. "I'm glad I could help. But what does this have to do with me?" Aelara hesitated, then took his hand. "Your blood, it did more than heal me. It awakened something within me, a connection to an ancient power that has been dormant in my people for millennia. This power could turn the tide of the war, but it requires a bond between a Xal'thari and a human. You and I are now linked, Marcus. Together we can end this conflict." Marcus was stunned. He had never asked for any of this, but he couldn't deny the sense of purpose that filled him. "What do you need me to do?" Aelara smiled, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Fight by my side. Together we will unite our peoples and bring peace to the galaxy." The days that followed were a whirlwind of preparation and strategy. Marcus trained alongside Xal'thari warriors, learning to harness the newfound strength and agility that his bond with Aelara had granted him. Together, they led a daring assault on the Xal'tharian stronghold, their combined power overwhelming the enemy forces. But the true shock came in the aftermath. As the Xal'tharians surrendered, Aelara revealed the truth to the galaxy. The ancient power she and Marcus had awakened was not a weapon, but a force of unity, a bond that could bring all species together. The Xal'thari and humans formed an alliance, and other races soon followed, inspired by their example. The galaxy was forever changed. War gave way to peace, and the story of the human warrior and the alien princess became legend. Marcus Hale, once a lone soldier, had become a symbol of hope and unity. As for Marcus and Aelara, their bond only grew stronger. They ruled together not as conquerors, but as guardians of a new era. And though their journey had begun with blood, it ended with something far greater, a legacy of peace that would endure for generations to come. Epilogue. Years later, as Marcus stood on the balcony of the Xal'thari palace, watching the stars, Aelara joined him. She took his hand, her touch as familiar as it was comforting. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "what might have happened if you hadn't saved me that day?" Marcus smiled, his eyes reflecting the light of 1,000 suns. "I don't need to wonder. No. The galaxy would have lost its chance for peace. No. I would have lost you." Aelara leaned her head against his shoulder, and together they gazed out at the galaxy they had saved. It was a story that would be told for centuries, a story of courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between two souls. And so, the legend of the human warrior and the alien